We arrived on Mars like gods, encased in composite alloy suits, fire at our heels, the red planet trembling beneath our descent thrusters. The dropship's hull groaned as we pierced the atmosphere, but none of us flinched. We weren't tourists. We were the third way, military-trained engineers, hardened survivors, the kind of people who'd been forged in war zones and trained to bend hostile environments to humanity's will. I'm Lieutenant Cole Ramirez, former combat engineer, now planetary colonist assigned to Outpost Tharsis Ridge. It wasn't much. A series of prefabs welded together in the shadow of a frozen canyon, constantly battered by microquakes and whispering winds. But it was ours. At least, that's what we told ourselves. The first week, Mars reminded us who was really in charge. Power went out during a sandstorm that lasted 42 hours straight. Imagine wind so fierce it flays metal like skin, particles so fine they slip past triple seals and clog every filter you've got. We lost 3 oxygen generators and 2 drone units before sunrise. The emergency lights flickered red as our life support systems went into conservation mode. It got cold, so cold that one guy's saliva flash froze mid-sense when his suit cracked. He didn't make it. Command said help was 2 weeks out. We had 4 days of breathable air. So we did what humans do best. We got angry, got creative, and got to work. I led a team down into the old surveyor tunnels, salvaging parts from defunct rovers and early-gen bots. We rerouted what little geothermal activity we could tap from the fractured basalt bed beneath us. By the third night, our makeshift reactors were humming like a heartbeat, radiating enough warmth to keep our main habitat from turning into a tomb. We slept in shifts, ate protein sludge like it was gourmet, joked about dying with dignity, or at least with boots on. When our comms array finally came back online, Command asked for a sitrep. Alive, I told them. And staying that way. What I didn't say was that half the team had frostbite, or that Jenkins started hallucinating faces in the storm outside the dome. Mars has a way of peeling back the layers of civilization until all that's left is raw survival. But we endured. You don't really understand the word resilience until you've seen someone patch an oxygen manifold using a shattered visor, duct tape, and sheer desperation. Out here, there are no second chances. Just ingenuity, pain, and the terrifying beauty of a planet that doesn't care whether you live or die. We came to tame Mars. What we learned is that you don't tame a planet like this. You learn to bleed with it, fight beside it, and eventually, if it lets you, you become part of it. That was our baptism. Red dust in our lungs, frostbite in our bones, and the unshakable knowledge that humanity doesn't survive because we're the strongest. We survive because we never stop. Olympus Mons wasn't just a mountain. It was a myth wrapped in stone. Towering 3 times the height of Everest, it cast a long shadow both physically and psychologically over everything we did on Mars. We weren't supposed to go near it. Official protocol called it a geologically unstable and a non-priority for colonization. But protocol doesn't hold up well when one of your seismic drones starts transmitting tremors from beneath its western flank. The data didn't make sense. Rhythmic pulses too regular to be tectonic. Not natural quakes, almost mechanical. At first we figured it was a malfunction. Then the drone sent an image, just one, before it went dark. A tunnel entrance nearly circular, framed by what looked like scorched stone carvings. Not lava tubes, not erosion. I stared at that image for hours trying to rationalize it. Maybe ancient Martian weather patterns, maybe some freak geological quirk. But I'd seen enough war zones to know the difference between random and intentional. That tunnel was made by something, or someone. I assembled a small recon team, strictly off the books. We slipped out under the cover of a minor storm, riding rover bikes across 80 kilometers of fractured terrain. By the time we reached the base of Olympus Mons, my hands ached from the cold and the static charge in the air had everyone's HUD glitching. We found the tunnel. It was darker than it should have been. Not just shadowed, hungry. Light from our suit lamps barely pierced 20 feet before getting swallowed by the silence. The walls were smooth, too smooth. Like they'd been cut by a laser, then weathered by time until they almost looked natural again. We went in. The temperature dropped 5 degrees within 10 meters. Our breath started fogging up our visors, even with thermal regulators on. Jenkins muttered something about hearing whispers. I told him to keep it together, but I felt it too. Pressure in the ears like descending too fast in an airplane. The deeper we went, the more our tech failed. Signal loss. Compass spin, battery drain. Then Jenkins vanished. He was 5 meters ahead, keeping point. 1 second, his beacon glowed steady. The next, it winked out like a candle in a vacuum. No scream, no warning, just gone. We searched for 12 minutes, calling his name. Nothing but our own echoes answered. I made the call to pull out. The rest of the team didn't argue. On the surface, we sealed the entrance with thermite foam and left a buoy beacon. No message, just a dead zone warning. When we returned to base, I told command the drone had suffered a mechanical fault and the mission was scrubbed. I left out the tunnel. I left out Jenkins. I left out the whispers. Mars doesn't just kill, it waits. And whatever's under Olympus Mons has been waiting a long, long time. We didn't wake it, not fully, but we knocked, and something knocked back. Things changed after Olympus Mons. Not immediately, not in ways you'd notice from Earth, but out here, you learn to read the signs. The way a silence lingers too long, the way people start watching each other out of the corners of their eyes. You begin to feel it in your bones, pressure building like a storm no one wants to name. It started with the shipments. Supply drops from Earth came irregular, then late, then stopped altogether. Official word was resource prioritization. Unofficially, command was lying. We started getting new arrivals. No botanists, no mechanics, no climate analysts. Just men and women in black armor with no insignia and weapons we weren't even supposed to know existed. They called themselves contractors, didn't say for who. Moved into the southern ridge, set up their own dome, and started poking into systems they had no business accessing. Power grids, water reserves, atmospheric controls. At first, we tolerated them. Mars was big, and we were all just trying to survive. But then our hydroponics failed. Nutrient tanks drained dry overnight. The backups? Corrupted. We had a week's worth of food left and no way to grow more. EO, our commander, confronted them. They claimed it was sabotage by us. Said someone on our team had planted malware trying to frame them. Bullshit. But it didn't matter. Trust evaporated. I organized a covert sweep, checked their camp during a solar blackout, while their surveillance was blind. What I found made my stomach twist. Crates labeled with logos from 3-Earth Megacore, all banned from Martian development due to ethics violations. Inside, signal jammers, encrypted drives, even black market AI units, ones that had been outlawed after the Sol incident. They weren't here to help build Mars. They were here to own it. We confronted them at dawn. 10 of us, armed, armored, done pretending. I gave their leader one chance to explain. He smiled like a man with a dozen contingency plans. That's when one of their drones exploded near our oxygen processors. Not an accident, a warning. They wanted war. They just didn't think we'd give it to them. That night, under red skies and a storm churning in the distance, we struck first. I led the breach into their southern compound. MP fried their comms, and our engineers rigged a water line to flood their AI servers with high-pressure coolant. We moved fast, clean, efficient. Only one casualty, Barrett, took a shot to the lung-protecting IO. We left a message carved into the wall of their bunker. This colony is human territory, not corporate property. The next day, they pulled out quietly. No threats, no retaliation, just gone. Mars had always tried to kill us with storms, radiation, and silence. But now Earth was sending people to finish the job. And that was the moment I realized something fundamental. Survival here wasn't just about oxygen and calories anymore. It was about ownership of land, of identity, of future. And we weren't giving it up, not without a fight. The southern polar region was supposed to be salvation. That's what command told us. Beneath the ice, they said, was enough water to sustain the colony for decades. Liquid gold locked in ancient vaults. The data was promising, the forecasts optimistic. So we geared up and made the trek. Me, Io, Torres, and Dr. Lin, our hydrogeologist. A 4-person team, cautious, lean, quiet. The ice caves were beautiful in the way only deadly things can be. Imagine shafts of blue light filtering through walls of frozen history, each layer older than the last, whispering secrets in silence. We drilled through one of the thinner sections, careful to avoid pressure fractures. We were after water samples, ice cores, and maybe, if we were lucky, evidence of dormant microbial life. What we found was something else entirely. We breached into a hollow chamber. Not a naturally formed cavity. This had geometry, purpose. The walls were smooth, nearly reflective, and lined with long branching tendrils of something organic embedded in the ice. At first we thought it was mineral contamination. Then Lynn ran a scan. Carbon-based, complex structure, biological, but not alive. Not in any way we understood. That's when the whispers started. At first we chalked it up to suit interference, comms feedback, maybe even the wind tunneling through the cave system. But it wasn't static. It was patterned, rhythmic, too faint to record, but strong enough to feel in the bones. Like the cave was breathing words none of us spoke, yet somehow understood. Torres went quiet, just stood there, visor fogged, staring at the frozen wall like it was calling to him. When I tapped his shoulder, he flinched like I'd woken him from a nightmare. Said nothing, just kept looking. We took samples and got out fast. Back at base, Torres locked himself in a lab with the frozen specimen. Io wanted to pull him out, but Lynn said we should let him work. He lasted 3 days. On the 4th, we found him outside the dome. No suit, no alarm, just gone. Like he'd walked into the storm on purpose. His last journal entry read, "They're dreaming, beneath the ice, waiting to be remembered." Lynn wanted to destroy the sample, said it was contaminating us mentally if not physically, but I made a different call. We stored it in a cryo locker deep in the restricted zone with biometric security and no external access. I told myself it was for science, for safety, for the truth. But that night I had the first dream. Blue light, endless tunnels, and something in the dark, not angry, not yet, but lonely. The caves weren't storage, they were tombs. Or maybe temples, maybe both. Mars had history, not human, but intelligent. And now that history was whispering again through frozen lungs and alien relics through the minds of the living. We hadn't just found water, we'd uncovered a memory. And Mars was remembering us in return. You can't keep secrets on Mars, not for long. The colony may sprawl across kilometers of regolith and seal, but the silence here stretches further. It echoes everything back. So when people started having the same dream, blue tunnels, pulsing lights, and something vast watching from beneath, it didn't take long before the whispers became conversation, and conversation turned into fear. Dr. Lynn was the first to speak publicly. She called an emergency meeting and laid it all out. Our discovery at the polar ice caves, the organic material, the whispers. She described Torres' death as a neurological event triggered by exposure to unknown stimuli, but she didn't sugarcoat it. Whatever was down there, it was waking up. Some of the colonists demanded the sample be destroyed. Others, scientists, engineers, even a few security officers, wanted to study it further. They believed we'd made contact. Proof of non-human intelligence, the greatest discovery in human history. But I saw the divide forming in the room. Not ideological, biological. People weren't just arguing, they were changing, subtle at first. Irregular sleep, nosebleeds, erratic behavior. A few started speaking in languages we didn't recognize. Raw phonemes strung together like code, not communication. And always, always the dreams. One night I woke to find Lynn standing over my bunk. No expression, no recognition in her eyes. Just staring, unmoving, like she'd forgotten where she was. I called her name twice before she blinked and stumbled back. She didn't remember coming to my room. She didn't remember sleeping at all. I checked the cryo locker the next morning. Still sealed, still cold. But the scanner showed fluctuations in the organic mass. Micro movements, shifts in temperature, like it was adjusting to our environment or responding to attention. That's when Io brought up the one word no one wanted to hear, quarantine. We locked down sectors, froze outgoing comms, labeled it a radiation containment drill to keep panic low. But the truth spread faster than the lie. People started leaving the base in small groups, heading into the desert, some with full gear, others with nothing but robes and rebreathers. They said the dreams told them where to go, that something was calling. We tracked them, every last one. None came back. I stood at the edge of a ridge one evening, watching the dust storm swirl over the horizon, and I realized something that chilled me deeper than the Martian night ever could. Mars wasn't reacting to us like an alien world. It was communicating, not through language or radio waves, but through instinct, through sleep, Through shared thought, it was embedding itself into us, the way spores cling to the lungs invisible until it's too late. We didn't just dig too deep, we listened too closely. And now something ancient, buried for eons beneath the ice, was using us as its voice. We had come to colonize Mars, but something else had colonized us. They say fear makes you hallucinate, that the brain, deprived of familiar input, starts to fill in the blanks with ghosts. I used to believe that. Back on Earth in war zones, I'd seen soldiers panic at shadows, flinch at wind, beg for mercy from things that weren't there. But this wasn't that. On Mars, fear doesn't lie. It warns. By the 6th week after the sample was taken from the ice caves, almost a quarter of the colony was gone deserted, dead, or changed. We stopped calling it a disease. Diseases can be tracked, treated, contained. This was something else. It didn't spread through air or water or food. It spread through understanding. Exposure to the thing beneath the ice wasn't physical. It was cognitive. The more you tried to comprehend it, the deeper it sank into your mind. Like the act of observing it, fed it, strengthened it. Dr. Lin was the first to vanish from the command structure. Not physically, she was still around, still working in her lab, but she wasn't there anymore. You'd speak to her and she'd smile politely, nod, even answer questions, but her eyes never moved quite right. Like she was listening to someone else, or something else, or something else. Once I caught her muttering under her breath during a systems check. I boosted the audio later and replayed it. She was speaking in binary. Not even words, just pure data. I confronted her. She didn't deny it, didn't explain it either. Just looked at me and said, "We're only passengers now, Cole." The signal chooses its vessel. After that, I moved the cryo locker. I took it out past the ravine, where we'd buried the first wave of casualties under basalt slabs. I sank it into a fissure, rigged explosives, and collapsed the entire section of canyon on top of it. I didn't tell anyone, not even Io. She'd started having dreams too, though she refused to admit it. I thought it might work, that if we severed the link, shut the door, maybe the infection would fade. But it didn't. If anything, it intensified. The colony lights began to fail at dusk. Our reactor would stutter, then surge back online as if resisting something. Communications began repeating strange static patterns. Loops of distorted audio buried in white noise. When decoded, the sequences formed fractal equations, mathematical spirals, recursive patterns, impossible blueprints. Someone, no one ever confessed, etched one of them into the hull of our main habitat. A spiral carved with surgical precision into composite alloy. Not graffiti, not vandalism, a signal. That night, 6 colonists walked out into the storm without suits, just bare skin, faces calm. They didn't scream, they didn't run. They belonged to something else now. Io came to me afterward, her voice shaking. She asked me if I remembered the first day we arrived. How proud we were, how human we felt. I remember, I told her. But that pride had rotted. Mars didn't just break our bodies. It unmade our minds, and I knew then this wasn't a planet we were colonizing. It was a transmission, and we were the receivers. We sent the final transmission at 300 hours. Io and I sat in the comms chamber, what was left of it. Cables frayed, panels flickering, and the whole room vibrating with that low hum we'd learned to fear. We'd fought to keep this channel open, shielding it from the recursive signal with every firewall and analog patch we could rig, all just to send one last message to Earth. Not for rescue. That window had closed weeks ago. No ship was coming. No protocol existed for this. Our message was a warning. This is Mars Colony Theta. If you're receiving this, do not send reinforcements. Do not attempt contact. Mars is not dead. Mars is not empty. It is listening, and it is using us. We looped the signal, set it to repeat on multiple frequencies, then locked down the antenna in case anyone tried to override it. Then we waited. Only a few dozen of us remained. Most were gone, either fled into the desert, never to return, or consumed by the signal's pull. Some simply stopped speaking, stopped sleeping, and became something other. They didn't attack us. They didn't need to. Their silence was more invasive than violence. They would watch us through the domes with calm, unwavering eyes, and we knew they were already gone. Whatever they'd been, it had been overwritten. Mars had rewritten them. I saw it happen to Lynn in real time. She was in quarantine, isolated behind glass. Then, in the span of one breath, she blinked, turned her head, and something else looked out from behind her eyes. Io and I were the last of the command staff. We made the decision together. If Mars was a signal, if it was spreading through cognition, then the only way to stop it from reaching Earth was to sever the source permanently. We initiated the overload sequence on the core reactor. It wasn't designed to fail that way, but we had engineers left, good ones, one still human. We gave the rest of the survivors a choice: shelter in the outer domes and take their chances, or leave with us in one final act of defiance. Most followed. A few didn't. I didn't blame them. Hope is hard to let go of, even when it's poisoned. As the countdown ticked, Io asked me if I thought Mars had always been this way, an intelligence buried under dust and silence. I told her I didn't know. Maybe it was once like Earth. Maybe something landed here. Maybe it evolved. Or maybe Mars was never a planet at all. Maybe it was always just a mind waiting for something loud enough, alive enough to hear it. We gave it that voice. The reactor went critical at 431. The ground screamed. Flames licked the sky, red and black and wrong. I remember sound shattering in my chest, heat searing across my back, and then nothing. No silence. No pain. Just one thought drifting in the dark. Mars is awake now, and it remembers everything.